don't mind putting your name in the chat as well as the age and grade of your child that you're potentially thinking for next year, that would be wonderful. Also, if you have any questions as Tim is presenting, if you want to pop them in the chat or raise your hand, he might not see them while he's presenting. So just to make sure we have all the questions answered. And I see a few more just joined, so maybe I'll type what I said in the chat versus just keep saying it over and over again. Oh, Lindsay's here. She always poses the questions. Yeah, I was just asking if anyone could, who's joined, please put their name in the chat as well as the grade and age of their student that they're interested in for next year. Thank you.
Good. Well, we'll get started here. I'm not used to doing these from home, so hopefully bear with me. There might be noises of teenagers every once in a while, but I think we'll get through it. So my name's Tim Carlson. I know that some of us here tonight are current CA families, and then some of us are just inquiring and looking at this program for their children that might not be part of CA quite yet. So we're going to do a little bit of a blend of a normal kind of admissions presentation for new families, but also, you know, some of us that have been around for a while, I won't be dwelling too much on things that you might know a lot about. However, I'm just going to start by sharing my screen here and then we'll get going. Great. So tonight we're joined by several people that are going to have a little bit of activity in our group as well tonight, and those are our two Blended Plus teachers currently who are teaching grade 9 and 10 Blended Plus, and that's Kim Peterson and Charles Brodeur. And then you've met Irene Dart, who is our Director of Admissions. And myself, Tim Carlson, I'm the principal at that school here. And then we're also going to be joined by Mike Ross, who is our assistant principal for high school and is going to be walking through some of the presentation as well. So tonight, I think we've got maybe about a half an hour or so of a presentation, and then we're going to take some time for questions at the end for you folks as well. I may or may not be able to see the chat as we're going through here. I'll try and keep it on my phone so I keep an eye on things. But if you have any questions as we're going through the presentation, please do either put your hand up. There's a little icon there that'll help you do that, or put it into the chat. But at the end of the half an hour or 35 minutes or so, we will have a time as well where you can pop your camera on and your mic on and ask a few questions, and we'll stick around for as long as is needed tonight as well. So the Blended Plus program at Calgary Academy is a bit of a newer program for us. It's just over the last year we've had our inaugural year. We're about halfway through our first one here, and it's been an idea that's been in plans for quite a while here. And so we're going to walk you back a little bit and talk a little bit about Calgary Academy as a general organization and what we stand for, and then we're going to dig into the Blended Plus program a little bit more to give you lots of detail today. So Calgary Academy has been in Calgary for 40 years. This is our 40th anniversary year this year. We've been stymied a little bit with the celebrations that we wanted to do, but we have been around in the city for quite a long time. And we started as a school that specifically was working with students who had learning challenges that weren't getting met in the regular school system necessarily. And then we branched out in the 90s and included a second program, which is called the Collegiate Program. And that's for students who may be at grade level or above, but are looking for something a little bit different, a more holistic type of education. And then more recently, as I said, we've joined our third program just for the high school students in grades 9 through 12, and it's called the Blended Plus program. But our mission and vision have always been to create student-centered approaches to learning, to engage our learners in richly personalized experiences, and we want to really make sure that we are doing that holistic type of wraparound approach to education that really helps our students become great citizens, not just to go out into the working world or go off to post-secondary, but to be contributors in a very positive way that we believe can impact our world as it stands and as it's changing rapidly, as you know as well. Of course, this we wouldn't probably be having this conversation without having a conversation about what the future of education looks like. And I would even say that the future is now, to use a term like that. Education has traditionally been a very difficult beast to move. If you look into classrooms generally speaking today around the world, you'll see a very similar setup to what it might have been 100 years ago, with desks in rows and a teacher at the front talking and filling the young children's brains with good information and knowledge. But we find that education has shifted over the last little while here, and really starting to get to the point where we're engaging students in their learning and trying to get them to be in charge of their learning and in assessment practices. And what does that mean for them? So the future of education, we believe, has a lot more flexibility to it. And we're going to be seeing that more and more probably over the next decade within Canada and across the world. You can see examples of that happening already. And we believe that we can be on the front edge of that a little bit as well. And so we're going to talk a little bit tonight about what that looks like in this case. And this is not the solution to every student's needs necessarily, but we believe the Blended Plus program actually fits a wide profile of learners and can have very strong and excellent benefits for students as well. But the future of education, we believe, still comes back to what the skills and attributes students need to be successful. And they do need people in their lives, strong and positive adults as role models and guides and mentors in their life as they move through. Maybe less as the top-down teacher to student filling the little cup full of information, and more of encouraging that growth and that vibrancy of what learning can really be like. So we'll get into that a little bit more as we move through here, but I want just to touch on that really quickly. And so, as we said, a third stream at Calgary Academy really is, for us, a flexible approach to learning that students, specifically in high school, are finding more and more are looking for in their lives. We know that life is busy for students. We know that the traditional classroom doesn't necessarily work perfectly for everyone. In fact, it can be a challenge for a lot of kids as well. We also know that there are students that have far more independence and are able to manage things on their own than maybe what has been seen in the past, or we've at least been thinking about in the past. So this idea of blending online and face-to-face learning is really what we think actually makes the best sense. Online learning is one of those words that probably creates some anxiety in a lot of folks these days because of the fact that we've been through this or still through in this pandemic, but the online pieces that have had to been forced on folks over the last 2 years, and still in some jurisdictions are doing that. Parents and students have this feeling like, I don't want to be away from the school. I want to be part of that community, and I'm missing out on something. For sure, online learning works really well for a small component of folks out there, for children out there. But really what we think is a blend of an online and face-to-face and engaging experiences, connected with a really important mentor and a teacher in their lives, while being able to experience the whole of what a community has to offer, is actually something that we can actually make happen at a school like ours. So I'll back you up a little bit. I talked a little bit about how we started out, and in 1980, 81, when we had this idea, our board of directors at that point was just a bunch of guys that had some similarities, and some families that were even trying to find answers for their children that were struggling with the regular system and the constraints that were in that. And then starting that program and adding the second program in 94 for more typical learners even, and even into last year where we started to think about what this could look like. So the transition for Calgary Academy, it's always been about pushing the envelope a little bit and of understanding what the needs are for students and trying to meet those needs as we move through time. So the Blended Plus program is just a quick graphic to kind of get it in your head wrapped around it a bit, has 3 important components. And the first one is the flexible online learning approach. And that really is, for our students, something that we believe can meet the needs, as I mentioned. There's an engaging in-person learning approach as well, where we actually have students in once a week for sure, that they can actually be engaging with their teachers on that day, maybe going deeper with some project-oriented pieces or tests and quizzes. And one of our teachers are going to dig into that a little bit more in a few minutes. And then that experiential off-campus learning portion as well, where students get the chance to go off campus, engage. Typically classrooms will do field trips, but these are a little bit more deep and involved and a bit more frequent as well. So what we're going to do is I'm going to shift it over. I think Mr. Roder is going to take over at this point, and he's going to walk us through a few of the more specific pieces around this, and then Ms. Peterson will jump in as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Charles. I teach humanities in Blended Plus this year to grades 9 and 10. So thank you for joining us today. So even this afternoon, there's a conversation happening with some kids in the class, and one of our students is saying, yeah, I'm so completely the opposite of my brother. She's a competitive snowboarder. She's like, yeah, we're completely different. And really, that's what Blended Plus is designed around, is variability. We know that we and our kids all have different strengths, needs, and interests, and what fits and works for one person may not fit and work for somebody else. So, for example, student athletes may need more flexibility in their schedule than a traditional schedule affords. For some students, being in the school building all day, every day, just doesn't strike the right balance for them. In Blended Plus, students can actually create their own customized learning rhythm. So that's really what it's all about. So is your child a Blended Plus student? We're looking at students who would like more flexibility in their schedules for activities outside of school, for students who want to have more time learning from home as well as at the school, with high levels of support. So teachers are available to support students, whether they're at home or at school or at their cottage or wherever they might be. Some students may experience barriers to learning, whether it's noise or the busyness or it's too much, so they may benefit from a different setting. And some students might want more choice and voice. So that's what Blended Plus is about. And next slide, I don't have control of the slides here. Thanks, Tim. So the program structure is organized around what we call a weekly learning format. And this weekly learning format helps us to guide students with a lot of support to become more self-directed learners. So in addition to daily direct instruction and outside of math, which follows a daily learning rhythm, the other subjects, learning materials are released on Tuesdays and assignments are released on Tuesdays, and they're due the following Monday. And that gives students a lot of choice and voice about what they're working on, when, where, and with whom. And of course, with a lot of structure and supports built into that. So part of what we have in Blended Plus is a flexible learning time, or a hybrid flex learning time. And this is time during the day, 4 days a week, where students have opportunities to either be in the building learning in our classroom, and students can be in our classroom all day, every day, all week long if they choose to be. And students can also choose to be learning at home during this time. So they have the flexibility to create, like I said, that customized learning rhythm. Some students may choose to come in on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Some students may come in every afternoon. Some students may come in 4 days a week. Some may come in just on the days that we're together on Wednesdays. It's really customized for that student. The idea with hybrid flex time and flexible learning time is it can be social. Students can learn with their peers in our classroom. They can choose to be learning at home, and teachers are available to support them in both of those modalities. So in Blended Plus, flexible learning really refers to anywhere, anytime learning. I think in the last few years, many of us have seen the benefits of having more flexibility to work at our schools or our offices, as well as at home as well. So online learning tools provide this flexibility. Students have more choices about where they learn, when they learn, and with whom they learn. And daily direct instruction allows us to provide those in-the-moment teachable moments that help to develop community. The other benefit of having flexibility and having elements of online learning as part of the program within that weekly learning format is it gives us the opportunity to help students learn to set goals, make learning plans, prioritize their tasks within the week, have strategies for initiating, for self-sustaining and maintaining that attention, and reflecting. So executive functioning skills are part of the program, developing those gradually over time for students as they become more and more self-directed. In-person learning is a really important part of our program. Every Wednesday for grades 9 and 10 this year, students are in the building or we're together going to off-site experiences throughout the city and the community. So when we're face-to-face at the school, that involves things like immersive projects, science labs, hands-on STEM. For example, we're doing a lot of constructing breadboards and microcontrollers this Wednesday coming up. This is where we'll have interactive seminars and debates. We do physical wellness activities on Wednesdays as well. And that's also the time where we can do secured tests and exams. So we know that some learning is just better together. Here's some examples of learning together and hands-on experiences that we do weekly in Blended Plus. So whether it's a science project or students, in this case, are at TELUS Spark in one of those pictures, it's where we do all of these things where It's just better to be together and for students to be learning collaboratively. Of course, our classroom is really important to say. Our classroom is open all day, every day to students. If students want to be in the building, they're welcome to do that all day, every day. They can be with their peers. They can hang out at lunch with their friends in the other programs. They can choose to do phys ed or integrated studies with their peers in other classes as well, or they can do a blended option with that. So students have a lot of flexibility to create a customized learning rhythm that works for them and their families. And I think I'll pass it to Mrs. Peterson.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kim Peterson. I've been asked to, I'm the math science teacher for grade 9 and 10 this year. And I've been asked to speak a little bit about some of the things that we've done for our off-campus learning. I won't go into a ton of detail, but just a little bit more to give you an idea of some of the exciting things we've been up to. Despite the COVID year, we've still managed to do some pretty amazing things already. So we've done a couple of things that I'll go into more detail in the next couple of slides, but we had the opportunity to go to the biogeoscience field station out in Kananaskis at Barrier Lake. And so that was a program. I'll talk about more when there's some pictures in the background for that. We did a biodiversity program at the Calgary Zoo. And then a couple of other things that are on the go and in various stages of development. So in terms of service learning, that is a big part of what we want to do, and of course has been very hard to do right now because a lot of organizations are not taking volunteers right now. So, within our own community, we built some plastic igloos for our elementary playground as an activity one day. And we have reached out to organizations like the Calgary Humane Society and Salvation Army, and we're just waiting for them to let us know when we can start getting back in and working with them. But obviously right now in a bit of a holding pattern on that one. In terms of building networks with the community, so one of the things that we had done before starting this program in the fall was connecting with SAIT. They've got a number of amazing programs there that are great for students. One of them being the Art of the Possible, which was something that we were planning on participating in fully this year. But unfortunately, SAIT is still not allowing students on site. So that is for sure in the future, as soon as we're allowed to start going there, we'll continue that relationship and start getting our students there and for that experience. And then also with our special projects course for grade 10, which is starting up, actually, it's going to be launched next week. We'll be doing some work connecting with experts in our local community as well, which we're very excited about getting our students connected there. And then, of course, phys ed. There's been lots of stuff that we do for our students who are doing blended phys ed. They can get a certain amount of their outcomes for the credits from doing regular athletics, for example, and getting a coach to sign off on it, or signing up for courses or lessons in the community and getting those signatures. But some of it is really hard to get in terms of those outcomes. So we've done things like disc golf. We had two things booked in January. We were going to do the climbing wall, and we were also going to go cross country skiing in Bragg Creek, but we had to cancel both of those, unfortunately. But with the current wave, we did a hike at Nose Hill Park, which also turned into city planning and talking about that and the organization of the 4 quadrants of the city, and getting into iNaturalist and charting some organisms while we were using that too. So those will continue. Oh, and yoga for athletes we've also done as well. So hopefully we can reschedule some of those winter ones soon. Advance. Thanks, Tim. And then of course there's got to be a trip, that is less educational than it would have been this one. So our very first day of school, our priority was not necessarily giving out lockers and those types of things, although obviously that is important, but we wanted to get the students to get to know each other. And part of that is our student, was a homeroom group of grade 9s and 10s together. So a lot of students that even were coming from within Calgary Academy didn't know each other very well. And then we had a number of students joining from outside of our organization. So the very first day, we really worked to get to know each other, have some fun. So that first day, we did some activities together at WinSport to get to know each other, play some silly games. Also gave us a chance to ask some questions and do some activities with the students to gather what their hopes were for the program, because of course, we can do what we think is a good idea, but it's really important that we're meeting the needs of the students. That's what it's all about. So that was a big focus of our morning. And then in the afternoon, we went mini golfing and downhill karting, which is a lot of fun. If you've never had a chance to do that, check out Skyline Luge. I'm not getting any money for that endorsement. The Biogeoscience Center. So this was actually really neat because they did a blended program for us. So our normal days on site or going to off-site facilities is Wednesdays. So on Tuesday we met with an educator from the program, and they online walked our students through the local area and the things that we can expect to see there, the changes that they've seen over the last few decades in terms of the changing climate that's out there, as well as how do you ask a question and how do you design a study that is going to answer your question. And then on the Wednesday, we went out there on site all day, and the students had a chance to actually use all the tools that they had at the field station and with the guidance of the educators to gather data and try to answer that question, which was a lot of fun. You can see that picture in the middle. It's fairly small in the picture, but there's a lot of data on that page that those girls had collected. And then the following day on the Thursday, when we were back online, or some students were in school at the time, but all sort of together in that virtual environment, we met again with the educator, who then walked the students through, what do you do with data now? Like, now you have this data, how do you make sense of it? How do you know if it tells you what you think it tells you? How do you allow it to lead you to the next question? And then of course the students took action with that, and we spent a bit more time, and they built some really amazing final products that, really were well exceeding what I was expecting. I was so impressed with what they came up with. This is just a picture from the biodiversity trip that we did. Again, there's so much that we can do, and this gets back to what was originally said about the online environment. There's lots of great things that we can do in terms of videos to make it interactive, and playing games with the students and polls and all those types of things. And there's lots of things that we can do at the school as well with our lab facilities, but there's some things that we just don't have access to, and you really need to get off-site to be able to learn things more deeply. And this would have definitely been one of those examples. We are learning about biodiversity and, the evolution of organisms and why they have different traits. And then the students were put together in groups at tables and were given random skulls, and using things like the placement of the eye sockets, the type of teeth, the size of the brain, what organism was this likely? So it was really taking them to apply the learning that they had done. And then we had a really great tour there where, again, it was looking at what it was that they had learned about, and then thinking more deeply and looking at specific organisms in front of them, and how that learning applied to them. Okay, so this is where I'm going to be for a little while. It's on this slide. So Charles did a really great job of going through what each of these components of the schedule are. I just want to make sure that you can see what our current grade 10 schedule is. And by current, I mean, right now, because as of Monday, those classes that are in there are going to change, because it will be the start of second semester for grade 10s. But the big picture idea here is the same for grade 9 and 10. So on Wednesday, you can see that teal color there. So those are our days where we're off-site or we're on-site doing hands-on learning, collaborative learning, design thinking challenges, those types of things. In the yellow that you can see there, that's the time that we have booked for when we are doing that direct instruction through Teams. Some students are in the classroom during that time, and some of them are at home, and some of them are in Ontario or, on the ski hill. They can be in all sorts of different locations, but they're all, that's when the lessons are happening, and all the lessons are recorded if something happens where a student is not able to attend. And that happens sometimes. Athletes have activities that they need to get to, or people who are in high level activities that, things like acting or music, you might need to go away somewhere for a little while. And so this allows the flexibility to not fall behind if you're in that type of situation. And then there's the darker blue, which is the blended flex learning time. So that is time where our students are, it's blocked out for students to be working on their assignments independently. But what's really important about those times, because there's nothing magic about 8:30 to 9 o'clock in terms of students working. In fact, it might not be a great time for them, but those are the times that we as teachers can be sure that we're available to students for one-on-one support or small group support. So often in the afternoons, we'll have students in the room to get extra help, just to do their assignments with us. If it's a section that they're feeling like they could use a little bit more support, they'll come in for a little while. Or they can call us. So they can call us in virtually as well, and we'll meet with them during those blocks too. And then one other thing I want to point out there, the gray in the middle there, the lunch, we've intentionally lined up our lunch schedule with the rest of high school, and that'll be true for 9 to 12 next year. I know I'm focusing on the 9-10 schedule right now, but I'll get to 11-12 in a minute. But we did that on purpose because we know that students may want to make connections with students outside of our program, or may already have connections outside of our program. So our classroom is right in the 9-10 hallway, and our lunchtime is at the same time. So, you know, we have many students who will connect with their friends and go out for lunch together, and then come back and work in the afternoon if they're choosing to be on site that day. 11s and 12s would be the same situation. In the afternoon there, you can see in the dark gray, there's phys ed and integrated studies. So there's the option to do those courses in person. Students can do that. And that would be following the regular schedule for, in this case, grade 9 and 10 schedule. For a grade 11 and 12 schedule, it will look much like this in terms of the components, but things will switch location because we will match up the grade 11 and 12 students with the grade 11 and 12 section of the regular school, or the traditional school schedule, which would be first block of the day. And again, it's to allow those opportunities for connections and to be in those courses. And then if students are doing blended phys ed or options, they would meet with their teacher that's working with them on Wednesdays. At the end of the on-site days, they would connect with our head of our phys ed department, Tracy Sullivan. She works with the students in terms of making sure they're tracking and staying on top of their logs and getting their credits and booking those trips for us. And then for our options courses right now, it's multimedia. And so they would get a lesson on a new skill on the Wednesday, and then they would have the week to work on the assignment and learn something new the following week. Next semester, it'll be art. And so same sort of idea, they'll come in, they'll get to spend some time in the art room on Wednesday afternoons with Mr. LaFond, our art teacher, and then he'll send them home with materials, and then they'll bring back their product or as far as they've gotten the next Wednesday and check in and receive some guidance from him at that point. So as I said, grade 9 schedule, very much like this. Obviously, the classes would be math, science, English, and social would all be happening all year. So that's one thing that's important, is that our grade 9s are full year. They're not semestered. Grade 10, 11, and 12 are semestered right now. Okay. I think that's where I'll pause and let you keep going. So Mr. Ross, I believe, is taking over right now.
Yeah, I'm here. Hi everyone. So I'm Mike Ross. I'm the assistant principal for the senior school from 9 to 12. I get to talk about all the fun things that kids get to do with the flexible learning. I know one of the thoughts that people have often when they hear flexible learning and the word online is, but some of the fun stuff is the musicals and the art, or the clubs and the sports. Well, that's all still available to anyone who joins Blended Plus. That's kind of, what makes us different from most programs that function online is the flexible learning still allows the students to be a part of all that goes on in our school. So for example, we have musicals. We have 2 each year. Our senior and junior school both have a musical. Oftentimes our senior school students will help with the junior school production. And they can earn credits even through that volunteer work, through working with the musical, because they're working on a lot of the skills that they would do in a drama class anyway. But that's all available to any student in Blended Plus. As well, next slide. Athletics. They can have every access to all the teams that any other student does. So they can still play sports, as you see there. We have all your typical high school sports that you'd expect. Basketball, volleyball, soccer, badminton. We have a strong golf program, from competing in team golf early in the year to a golf program that really spans the whole year, where students go weekly to the golf center and get lessons and work on their game. We also have like random sports that pop up every now and again. We've hosted European handball provincials, for a few years we had ultimate frisbee. We built connections with other schools to run things like wrestling, football, rugby. It really depends on if we have a group of students that want to. Most times we can find a teacher who will step up and run that sport. So again, those are all parts. We know how important that is to the senior school experience. And so those are available to any student that attends CA. Just Blended Plus doesn't make you ineligible for anything, because that's what makes senior school a lot of fun. Next. And then our travel studies program. For those of you who aren't familiar, so we have an international travel studies program, and there's basically two different variations of that. So every year we send 2 to 3 trips around the world, and they go to impoverished nations, but also we've been to Europe and such. And it's over their spring break, which is 2 weeks if you're not familiar with it. And they'll spend 1 week really kind of touring around, doing all the touristy events, really going into the culture of what's there, all the famous things. In Peru, we go to Machu Picchu and so on. And then they spend a week kind of giving back to the community. And, I've been on 3 of these trips, and I've done everything from painting schools in Peru to building bathrooms in the backwoods of Cambodia. And I really feel almost that part of the trip is more the authentic section. When you're trying to dig a bathroom out with people that don't speak any English in Cambodia, you really learn how to communicate in a different way. But that's a really valuable program. And the students that sign up for that program will have weekly meetings leading up to going, where they'll learn about where they're going. They'll learn, little bits of the language. They'll learn about each part of the trip and what they can see there and the history behind that. They also are involved in some service learning events as well. So throughout the year, they will do some volunteer activities. Sorry, my girls are just heading to bed. Bye. Bye. Sorry.
Bye.
Bye. Night.
Night.
Sorry about that. Go, Bill. Bill.
What's that?
That's just the background, honey. Go, honey. Okay, sorry. Go.
Tell me my butt.
Yes. Anyway, sorry. So they do the service learning to give back to Calgarians, because we know that is important for our kids to realize there's a community here that still needs help. So all of that is one part of our ITS program, but we also have part of our international studies is a kind of fine arts area. And that trip happens every second year. And those students actually go to New York City and spend the day visiting museums and the evenings going to Broadway musicals. So obviously a very different experience and different type of trip, but equally as rewarding for those students who have a high interest level in that. So really, the International Travel Studies, we love the program, and every year we're psyched to go, because, the students are so excited to see different cultures, and watching them really get engrossed and work with their hands out in different, backwoods of different countries is truly such a sight to see. And you really get a different view of the students out there. So really popular program for everyone. And again, totally available to anyone in any of our 3 streams. Next, Tim. Is this mine?
Either way, yeah. This is just a slide.
I could talk about the feedback we've received.
Go for it.
We've had, obviously it's our first year, right? So we've been checking in with the students who are part of the program, and each of them has found different ways that it's benefited them. You can see the comments there, and they just illustrate all the different aspects that the flexibility has given them. It's, for high performing athletes, that school is really tough to stay in and be there every day for every class. It's really created that balance for them. For students that maybe it's social emotional, that they really struggle getting into school every day, it allows them not to feel the pressure of, the added anxiety of missing school where they're falling further behind, but getting access to the materials that are happening when they're not there, and being able to still feel a part and connected to the program really lowers anxiety and makes them feel better about themselves and their schooling. So all of that is really captured in the way the students that we've talked to this year have felt about the program.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. It was nice to see your daughters as well. So,
sorry.
no, priorities.
10 minutes I was talking.
So we're just going to wrap up with a few more slides here. Of course, people want to know exactly kind of about the fees and payments and such. So again, when you're applying, if you're a CA family already, you don't need to worry about the admissions deposit and new family initiation fee. But for the tuition number, that's of course across whether you're new to us or current family. So if you are new to us as a family, there's a process you can go through, and I'll talk about that in a second. Again, for this blended plus program, we've decided to wrap everything into that cost. So there aren't really a whole lot of extras outside of that tuition cost and the supply fee. All of those things that we've talked about with regards to field trips, like the Biogeoscience Center, and really all those pieces are included in the cost of this program, whereas in our other programs, they are kind of extras in some of those pieces as well. Again, there's some optional pieces for sure. International travel studies that Mike talked about, our grade 9 trip. Some of those ones that are bigger costs are certainly are outside because those are optional type of trips as well. And then we also do have a busing program. Students could do the full-on busing or do an optional one-way busing program, either AM or PM, and that's a prorated fee. Our typical busing cost is around $2,600 for a full year, and this is a prorated fee of $1,400. So again, we're close to public transit. There's a bus that comes right near the school there as well, and the C train station is close by too. So lots of different options, especially when you have this flexibility of approach that students can come during the day or first thing in the morning, but leave midday types of ideas. And then, yeah, just next steps. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more, of course, many of you have seen the blended.calgaryacademy.com site, and you can look on there to see a little bit more about the program, read the blogs, watch the testimonials. And then if you're interested in doing the registration process, which we're in right now, I encourage you to do that. If you email admissions@calgaryacademy.com, we can answer some more of your questions there as well. We can even get you in touch for a personal conversation with one of us. We can walk you through some of those questions too, and really trying to do our best to make sure that you have a very clear picture of what this program is, what it can offer, and how it could actually fit the needs of your family and of your students as well. So again, program highlights really that authentic experiential learning where students can get out and get involved in the community at large. One of the most important things that we know of is that we have expert teachers, and our teachers are great at understanding student needs, digging into what those needs are, and being able to help draw those students along the path of learning so they can progress and grow. Building in that self-confidence so students feel better about their learning, may have had some struggles in the past in other areas, but really to build that's an important key aspect of who we are as a school, generally speaking. Again, the small class sizes, it will range in the blended program. Certainly, as you're moving into high school, you have different classes that you can take there as well. And then that dynamic in-person learning, the personalized and flexible learning pieces. And then one piece, of course, on the outside that Mike talked about is it's not just about the academics, it's about the whole picture. And for us at Calgary Academy, that's a key component of this program and of all of our programs. But it's that access to all those extracurriculars, the trips, the ski and snowboard club that we have, and clubs and all those pieces too. So that's kind of the whole program as a whole. I'm going to stop sharing here, and we can talk a little bit more about any of the questions that you might have that have popped up throughout this presentation. And we've done a recording tonight, so if you do want to go back and watch it, we'll post it tomorrow. And if you're folks that aren't a part of our school yet, if you just email us at admissions@calgaryacademy.com, we can get you a link to that as well. Okay, I'm going to stop talking, and I'll probably stop recording here as well. And I just want to ask anyone